live. Woo!
Hi, Gus. Hi, Tim. Good morning. Good afternoon, actually, for you.
Good
Yeah.
afternoon for us. Yeah, hi.
I thought Gus had frozen there for a second. It was
I
kind of
think
like
I'm
I was
very,
shocked. No,
everything is very slow, but I'm here. That's the main thing.
yeah. Okay.
That's good. That's good. We can see your face. Your background's blurry, and that's fine. So, welcome to our show, blurry and all.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as the foreground is okay. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of
Well,
my audience prefer my face to be blurry as well. But other than that,
yeah. So you're gonna avoid too many hand signals or anything like that.
yes,
Um,
yeah.
for I mean, I think most people in the UK and in the world know who Gus is from your reputation. But for that 1%, that 0.1% of people who have no idea who you are, how would you describe yourself in a few sentences?
So I am a marketing strategist. I'm a social media manager, and I'm the UK's #1 LinkedIn trainer, according to my mum. So that's generally how I describe myself. But yeah, it's I appreciate the intro. I appreciate that. Yeah, some people know me. I think that's the
Yeah.
main thing. But not everybody. Yeah, I won't rest until all 8 billion people know me.
Everyone on LinkedIn seems to know who you are, and you train, and you're doing workshops, and you're doing meetups, which is amazing. Because I think for too long, some of us stopped meeting up, but you're doing this now again. Tell us a little bit about your in-person meetups and your conferences that people can get to know you a little bit better and learn more about LinkedIn and what you
Oh,
teach.
absolutely. There's I'll mention three things that are coming up. So I'm running a LinkedIn masterclass, which is in January. That's online. I ran one in person last year, and it was fabulous. It was like a room full of people, and but so many people said, "Oh, I can't make it. I can't, make it to Coventry," which is obviously a shame for them. So then I decided to run it online. I also run something called the SMM Meetup, which is the Social Media and Marketing Meetup. So that happens in central Birmingham twice a year, and the next one is the 1st of March. That literally is just like marketers get together and chew the fat. And then I'm also co-organizing a LinkedIn conference, which is called Uplift Live, and that's on March the 21st. That's in Birmingham. It's a couple of hundred people. We got some fabulous speakers from around the world. We've got 8 speakers. There's going to be a pre-party. There's going to be lots of networking, etc. So it's just where for business owners, marketers, agency owners, LinkedIn enthusiasts, anybody that really wants to take their LinkedIn to the next level. Basically, we're going to spend a whole day doing a real deep dive into LinkedIn.
So this is what you're talking about right now, your conference. This is a one day only event.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. I mean, there will be a pre-party the evening before, but we're cramming it all into one day kind of thing. Just to make it easier. We've got, I think, 20 or
Yeah.
30% of our audience are coming from abroad. So we have a few people from the States. Interestingly, we have lots of people from the Netherlands, people from France, Cyprus, Spain, all sorts of places, which is great. And I think it makes it easier to have it all in one day, and then they can see the beautiful sights of the Midlands, any around that, if they
Mm,
choose.
yeah.
Right. Let's wind back a little bit. And again, I'm going for the 1% of people who don't know who you are.
Sure.
Some of them might not know what LinkedIn is and why LinkedIn. I mean, clearly you train people in LinkedIn and you've been using LinkedIn for a while now, presumably. What is so good about LinkedIn, and what is LinkedIn in the first instance, and why is it so good for small business people and people in general, and people in their careers to use as a platform?
That's a great question. I love LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is a social media platform. It started in 2002 by a gentleman called Reid Hoffman. It started as a place for business professionals to share their work, share their CV, to try and get jobs. So it was really good for recruiters. It was really good for job seekers, etc. And LinkedIn still sell it in that way. But particularly since Microsoft bought it in 2016, it's become a place where and then the pandemic, lots of people kind of it's a place where we have conversations. I call it the digital water cooler, where we can go and have conversations, make connections, really get to know people. And actually, as the old adage goes, people buy from people. So I think the important thing is that we learn about people and choose the people that we want to have in our lives.
I've noticed a shift in LinkedIn. At one point, we were supposed to keep it extremely professional. You only talk certain topics. You only post very professional pictures. Where is LinkedIn now? Because personally am still confused, and I've talked to other people, especially in the nonprofit sector. How do we network, and what should we be posting now on
So
LinkedIn?
LinkedIn is the only place where you get to curate your own audience. So you can use the search box, you can search for whoever you want by job title, by location, etc. And then it's just a case of connecting to them and hoping that they connect back. Now, what then happens is you create a positive echo chamber of people that are interested in you and what you have to say, etc. Now, for me, as a LinkedIn trainer, we're 10 a penny, right? There's loads of us on LinkedIn, unsurprisingly. But then same with social media management or marketing strategists, etc. What sets us apart is the stories that we tell about ourselves. So whether I talk about the fact that I wear orange trainers, or the fact that I like orange chocolate, or the fact that I run conferences or events, or etc. It just sets me apart from other people. So people might choose me as opposed to choosing somebody else. So particularly when it comes to content, I call it the Adrian Moldification of LinkedIn. So where people journal their lives. It's kind of saying, this is what I've done this week, this is who I am, this is what makes me tick, etc. And it makes so everybody is unique in a sense, and LinkedIn is a great opportunity for us to share that uniqueness.
Okay, but not to be confused with Facebook. What kind of subject should we post about? And I know, for example, if I'm in a literacy organization, which I used to be, nonprofit, do we stick specifically to the industry we are in? Do we go get a little personal? What are
So
some of your guidelines in that regard?
I have an arbitrary figure of 70-30. So what I normally do is 70% of my content is very personable in terms of, I'm going networking, or this is what I had for dinner last night, or this is who I've met, or this is what I've bought, that kind of stuff. But 30% of my content is still very work related. LinkedIn has 1 billion members, and the majority of those people are business professionals that want to be there to talk to other business professionals. So we still have to sell. So what I normally say is you still have to tell people what you do for a living, how much it costs, how they get involved, what they achieve from working with you, etc. So I think that's really important. But what sets us apart from other people, other organizations, etc., is the bits in between that make us tick and make us different to other people.
So there's lots of things you can do on LinkedIn, and I've used lots of the things, other things. You can recommend people, you can post, you can set skills up, you can contribute to articles. I've seen a lot of people doing that. You can post documents. What would you say, in your mind, is the least used thing that people should be doing more of on LinkedIn? And what is the thing that people are overusing possibly on LinkedIn? Or if there isn't anything, well, tell us why.
Okay, so now that is an interesting question, because I think so. Most marketers will say you must post videos. Everybody should post a video. We should keep doing videos, etc. I used to post quite a few videos, and they all bombed. They all died a death. So I stopped. But I still recommend to others that they should post videos. Now, what I've seen is, particularly over the last year or so, videos are coming back into prominence. And what I'm seeing more of is people actually sharing videos across various platforms like YouTube or TikTok or Instagram, etc., and also on LinkedIn. And because LinkedIn has that personable nature now, those videos aren't frowned upon anymore, in my opinion. I think basically people want to see the behind the scenes content, the stuff that's going on, and all that kind of stuff. One massively underutilized feature is LinkedIn Live. And I think that's
Yeah.
because you can't do it natively. I think people, because you still have to use Restream or StreamYard or those kind of things, I think people still underutilize that. One of the things I've seen, not necessarily overutilized, but like when the newsletter feature came out, the world
Yeah.
said, let's put out newsletters. Now, I go through my subscriptions on a regular basis and see who I'm following in terms of newsletters. There are people that have said, we're going to send out a weekly newsletter. And after about 3 weeks, they've stopped. So
Mm.
I basically unsubscribe. I think a lot of people have set up newsletters and just kind of left them there and not really done anything with it. So it's overutilized to the point where lots of people set them up, but it's underutilized because people aren't actually continuing with that kind of with that stream. But I love newsletters. I think a newsletter done well, reaching the right people, because obviously people have to subscribe and then they get a notification that you've created a newsletter. I think it's a fabulous feature which technically is underutilized by the right people.
Okay, Gus, you said that we do somewhat need to sell ourselves. this whole selling in the DMs kind of thing on LinkedIn. Can you give us a strategy, a better strategy to sell? Because I know when someone comes to my DM and I don't know them at all, and they're selling me whatever it is they are, I kind of feel taken aback. Is there a better strategy to go about this?
Hmm.
Tell us more about a better strategy in this regard.
Yes, absolutely. I think so. My LinkedIn headline kind of makes reference to inbound leads, because what I encourage people to do is connect to the right people and tell enough wonderful stories so that people want to
Mm,
choose you. Now, ultimately, everything that we ever buy in life, everything that we ever purchase, everything we ever spend our money on, it's like through trust. So people that we trust, brands that we trust, etc. So particularly when it comes to selling in the DMs, I normally say it's a no-no. The way I do it is I connect to people. I kind of obviously thank them for connecting, but then I create enough content that that person would want to read. And it gets to the point where I share enough value, I share enough authority, I share enough knowledge, to the point where they think, right, at the moment they need me, they come to me. I think if we do it the other way around, if we go in with the hard sell of saying, this is me, please buy my services today, because you don't know that person, technically you don't trust them, and because you don't trust them, you're never going to hand over your cash. So personally, I think selling at the DMs is, it's a very much a long-term game. I think people who try to kind of gamify or make it really quick, or and all that kind of stuff, it's basically not for them. If you want quick sales, go and do Facebook ads or Google ads or
mm.
something like that kind of thing. I think LinkedIn is more about relationship building and ultimately trust building.
And because Facebook ads and what Instagram ads, I make them, you can set it so that it goes to your audience really, and so
Yes,
the sell's a little bit different.
yeah, and that's the
Mm.
thing. If you
I
have particular followers, it's all about reaching those followers. Whereas I think with LinkedIn, it's an engagement game. It's basically having two-way conversations to make sure that you're talking to the right people. And again, if you curate the perfect audience, ultimately every piece of content that you create is going to your ideal clients. So quite frankly, at some point they need to buy, right?
Yeah. It's funny. I think I'm one of the few people in the world who's actually done LinkedIn ads in the past. I just because
Mm,
at one stage I was trying to sell books on every platform, and but that comes onto a question. There is a lot of information on LinkedIn about people that isn't on all the other platforms. So
mm,
things like job title, the company they work for, things like that.
yeah.
When you're, because you say you're searching out people to connect with, but you're not
Mm,
necessarily then going to send them a buy my stuff DM.
mm.
How are you working out that where those people are and what audience to look for? How is that? How and how often do you add people on LinkedIn? Do you find one person a day and connect with them? And how does that work? And what's your process for that? Or if you want to refer us to your sessions to find out how to do that, then fair enough.
No, no, no. I mean, I'm happy to share. I mean, basically, when in terms of finding the right people, it's a broad brush of either job titles or location, etc. The
Yeah,
majority of my clients are UK based, so generally I will search and connect to UK based business owners. I use Sales Navigator as well, so I can look
yeah,
at how many employees the company has, or who they work for, or how long they've been there, and I can even check whether or not they posted in the last 30 days, for example, on LinkedIn, because it's always good to speak to active people.
yeah.
But as a general rule, I connect to UK based business owners and essentially create content that they would want to read and giving them enough value. If they're on LinkedIn, it kind of suggests to me that at some point they're going to be ready to buy something. It's not always about the person that I connect to. Sometimes it's about the people that they know. So, for
Mm,
example, Tim, you may not be an ideal client of mine. However, you will be connected to a very large network. So when we engage with each other and converse with each other, our respective networks see what we do. So some of my network will think, you'll be ideal for them, and some of your network will think I'm ideal for them. So it's that it's what I call the octopus tentacles that go through the network and suck the right people back into you.
Okay, so let's pretend like we don't have a LinkedIn at all,
Mhm.
because I still know people who don't and don't quite know how to use it. Where do we go from the very basics and very beginning? And I remember when I had no idea, so I kind of just left my LinkedIn straight, just kind of left it. Where do we go for the very newbies that realize how important LinkedIn is now, but we just don't know what to do?
Initially, I think there's two steps. The very first step is to make sure that everything on your profile says exactly what it needs to say. So, I don't know if you have Ron Seal in the States, but basically it's the Ron Seal marketing strategy, which is basically does exactly what it says on the tin. So make sure your headline, make sure your about section, make sure your experience section all tell the world exactly what you do in very precise, concise kind of text. And so this is what I do for a living. This is who I do it for, etc. The next step would be to curate an audience, and it's actually start. So, for example, people go networking. People might be on Instagram. They might bring over contacts from Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or whatever. They go networking. They meet people there. They should connect, exchange business cards, connect to them on LinkedIn. So it's about saying the right things, but then curating the perfect audience. And then the third step would be to create content that that audience would want to read. So in the very first instance, just make sure your profile says all the right things. It's amazing how many profiles I see where the experience section or the testimonials or the the skills, the experience, the headline doesn't actually tell people what you do for a living. Most people just put their job title, managing director at XYZ company. Doesn't tell anybody anything. What does the company do? What do you do? What do people get from working with you? So I think it's just being very explicit about why people should work with you as opposed to somebody else.
Yeah. I mean, I've had this problem, and to some extent, I've still got this problem, having moved careers, because LinkedIn is actually I set up a LinkedIn profile when I was still working in financial IT many years ago, which is not true of all my other social media platforms, but they're equally as indecisive and confusing. But if somebody's moving career, what kind of process should they do? So let's say they are a computer programmer, but they're moving to become a trapeze artist. Should they just basically delete all the skills and references to their old thing, or and get rid of all their connections? Or should they keep it and kind of put it on their profile and gradually move from one to the other in terms of the experience? How should they do that? Or should they? You can't have more than one LinkedIn profile either. You can only have one. So
That's correct.
how should
Yeah.
they deal with a career change?
So you can only have one LinkedIn profile, so it's against the terms and conditions to have another one. What I would
Yeah,
suggest is that so keep your network. You never know who needs a trapeze artist at some point,
yeah,
but the but everything else in terms of what you do, you like change that. So what I would recommend is make sure your profile talks about exactly what you sell. So, for example, you can keep all your connections, you can still keep your old experience and your old skills, etc.
yeah,
But I would add new skills and change my headline and change my about section and add a new experience section, which basically says, "This is what I do now. I'm now a trapeze artist. I do this. I'm in the circus and I charge £100 an hour to jump around your
yeah,
house, whatever it may be." And
yeah,
for want of a better phrase, and I think it's that element of whatever makes you money is the bit that you should tell people exists. But all your, I don't recommend deleting your past. Let's put it that way. In
yeah,
terms of your network, your connections, your old experiences, etc. Because it's very obvious when people arrive on your profile, it will say, you know, Gus was I don't know, an accountant between 2004
yeah,
and 2017, and in 2017 he became a trapeze artist, which is what he does now. It's
yeah,
that kind of thing. So, and people will always be interested in that journey. I think if you delete all the old stuff, it just looks like that you were just born yesterday and started as a trapeze artist
yeah.
kind of thing. That's a great example, by the way. I'm going to use that in my marketing.
I want
Yeah,
to see this
yeah.
from both of you. Okay, so one of the things that I know is tricky for some of us is we have several interests that could make us money. Now we have a
Mhm.
career where we have to be because we need to make that income, but we also sell books, we speak on the side, we have these other things that can also bring us money. How do we tie the two into our one LinkedIn profile?
So the about section is probably the key bit here. So I believe it's up to 3,000 characters where you can tell the world what you do, and in there it should say, "I do X, I do Y, I do Z," and it should all kind of be in there. Coupled with that, in terms of a content marketing strategy, I would suggest having different content pillars. So, for example, if you have a book, if you have a career, if you have a side hustle, if you're a trapeze artist, whatever it may be, have a content pillar for each one of those elements. And then like, I don't know, on a weekly or a monthly basis, make sure you write at least one piece of content about that particular
Mm.
thing. So if you have a book, then every month you should write something about that book. Whether it's a testimonial you received, a 5-star recommendation on Amazon, whether there's a discount available, maybe share one of the chapters, maybe talk about whoever wrote the foreword, etc. And all of a sudden you've got, like, a couple of months worth of content there on that content pillar. And then you do that for each strand of your life, basically. So your book, your career, your side hustle, your main hustle, etc.
Okay, so we don't need to ignore those kind of side hustles or the other things that aren't our primary career. We can bring them in, is what you're saying, to our LinkedIn and introduce it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think, again, it builds up a picture of
Mm.
someone. Lots of people can say they're a social media manager, but then are they a social media manager that's written a book? Are they a social media manager that also
Mm.
is a trapeze artist? Are they a social media manager that just eats lots of orange chocolate? It's these little nuances that make us different for people to understand what makes us different. Because otherwise, like I normally say, LinkedIn makes you ungoogleable. As in, I don't want people to go to Google and search for a social media manager, because by that time I've lost them. What I want people to do is know me as a social media manager or a LinkedIn trainer or an author, etc. So when they think that they need someone like me, they come directly to me as opposed to going to Google. And I think by continually telling stories and having a solid content marketing strategy on LinkedIn will make you ungoogleable, because people, essentially you go top of mind. So people think of you as opposed to going somewhere else.
Well, what's brilliant about LinkedIn is if you Google someone's name, their LinkedIn profile is usually what comes up first, is what I've noticed.
That's correct. Yeah. So it's like LinkedIn is very Googleable now. So particularly, this is why a lot of people create newsletters and articles
Yeah.
on LinkedIn, because they are Googleable. You can search for particular phrases, particular key terms, and LinkedIn articles are almost as good as website blogs, as long as they're
Yeah.
with the right titles and written well, etc. They can be as good as, if not better than website blogs, for example. So yeah, it's a very good way to be found.
Yeah. I mean, one of the questions which is you see asked a lot on all social media things, and is a little bit of a how long is a piece of a string, but how often should people be posting on LinkedIn? Let's say they've got these three separate areas that, like, they've got their main thing and then they've got two side hustles.
Mhm.
Should they be posting about them once a week each, or should it be once a week and then, or once a day, or once every 10 minutes? If it's every 10 minutes, then you better get back and write your five articles for this show or whatever. Um,
Absolutely.
but what sort of frequency should people be posting on LinkedIn?
So I normally recommend a maximum of once a day. There are some people that will say you should post twice a day or 4 times a day and all that kind of stuff. I think it's nonsensical. I think if you have
Yeah,
a proper job and you're doing well and all that kind of stuff, proper career, then I think posting more than once a day, doesn't really work. As a From personal experience, I'm basically working with thousands of clients. I know that an optimal amount for me and what I recommend is normally about 3 times a week,
yeah,
on whatever day you want. So basically, it could be any day. I know, again, and this is personal experience as opposed to what the kind of everybody, what you would read in books. Mondays don't do very well for me. And previously, before the pandemic, Saturdays never used to do very well.
oh,
Now, every day except Monday does well for me. So, and Sundays actually particularly do really well, interestingly, because I think lots of people are kind of at home on a weekend reading LinkedIn and all
yeah,
that kind of stuff. So I would recommend don't post more than once a day, but as an optimal amount, I would normally suggest 2 to 3 times a week is what I would recommend. And again, that content could be um, your different content pillars. It could be about what you're doing that week. It could be journaling your week. You could just amalgamate everything into one post, etc. The analogy I use is the relay race. So it's about passing the baton on. So for example, if you post in the morning, that post starts running, and then it gets to and if you post again, the first post passed the baton on to the second post, but the first post slows down. So I always recommend let the first post get up to speed before you try posting a second post, in my opinion.
Okay, good. Gus, where can our audience and anyone who isn't on LinkedIn watching, where can they where can they find you? LinkedIn, websites, all of the above. Where can we go find you?
So I always recommend that no matter what platform you're on, So I'm on, for example, LinkedIn, obviously, but Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Snapchat, TikTok, Pinterest, Discord, Hive, Parler, BeReal, Clubhouse. I'm still on Clubhouse, yeah, unbelievable. So basically, if people want to find me, the best thing to do is go to Google and just type in my hashtag, which is MGuruUK. And if you type that into Google, you'll find out all about me. It's got everything like my memberships, my website, my LinkedIn, etc. But MGuruUK is the phrase to search on any platform, and that's where you'll find me.
Yeah. And if you scan the QR code in the corner, hopefully, if I've set it up right, it will take it to my website, which has a link to his LinkedIn handle. So,
Yeah.
which I think is probably just them Guru UK. If whatever works, if you happen to be on, because I'm a great aficionado at putting QR codes on shows because I watch a lot of YouTube and stuff on TV, and for me, it's rather than like because people will be, oh, read the comments, but it's really hard to read comments on YouTube and other videos on the TV. So
Yeah.
that's why that's why I'm a fan of QR codes. Not though I can see in the analytics hardly anybody ever clicks on it or scans it, but I'm still sticking to it. I'm sticking to my QR codes.
I think QR codes made a real comeback. I think that's the thing. I think
Yeah.
they and I think that it's such an easy way. Like everybody has a mobile device, and it's really
Yeah.
easy. And particularly when people, because most people, what I don't like is when people put QR codes on Instagram posts because it's like, how do I reach
Yeah.
that kind of thing? But
Yeah.
everywhere else, I think on a YouTube channel, having it on the screen, yeah, I think it's perfect, and it's yeah, I love
And
them.
they
I think
do that. I do too, and I like I've been at so many conferences now, networking events, where people have their business card as a QR code now.
Yeah.
So we're just scanning on each other's phones versus passing out the paper card.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
my screensaver on my phone is my LinkedIn QR code. So I just tell people just get your camera out and connect to me kind of thing, which is great. I mean, it's not foolproof, but it's a better option than printed cards and and all that kind of stuff. So in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I keep meaning to redo some actual printed cards, but when I do, I'll put my photograph and I'll put a QR code because I
Yeah.
think actually
Yeah.
those are way more useful than like a load of the usual stuff that people put on. I mean, you want a way to contact the person, and a photograph helps remember like who on earth the person is because a lot of time I forget. And you've got this card and like, Bill Smith. Who's Bill Smith? Which Bill Smith? It's like, oh, it's the guy, the LinkedIn guy.
Yeah, absolutely. It does. Yeah. In February 2020, I had 2,000 business cards printed. So yeah, I think I've still got about 1,998 there or thereabouts. So yeah.
You should do a giveaway.
Yeah, give away of my business cards.
Business card. Just take them and cross my name out and put your name on it.
Absolutely.
Like a giveaway.
That's amazing.
Anyway, thanks so much for being on the show. Hang around a little bit after the credits because supposedly it's recording locally and hopefully I can upload this nicely synced version to YouTube.
Yeah. Sorry for those watching and like who's a bit out of sync. So just to clarify, we're not talking about llamas, right? We're not gonna do that.
No. Well, it's a long-running joke on this show, and I haven't done it for a while. But I usually ask people about how they would use whatever they do to help Christelle start a llama farm. So it would be like how to promote. But I think I asked that question to Sarah Clay as to how like she would help Christelle with a llama farm. We've had a few LinkedIn experts over the years, but you're the first one for a while, so
good.
You don't have to worry about no llama farm question. You don't have to worry about that.
On a completely unrelated note, there are 330 goat herders on LinkedIn. So that's is an interesting fact for her. Yeah. So I say interesting. It's not interesting at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did you end? Were you looking for goat herders?
I did some training some time ago where I basically said, look, you can literally search for anything. And somebody in the audience shouted, well, goat herders. And I thought that's weird. And I typed in goat herders and I think at the time there were 326, but now we have 4 new ones kind of thing. So they've just entered the market. So it's, So particularly in terms of llama farming, I think if you actually specifically put, I'm a llama farmer, I never realized that rhymes before. But anyway, if you put that, I mean, you never know who's going to be. You just never know where your next client is going to come from. So I think as long as you're very explicit in terms of what you do, you never know who's searching, right?
I just want you to know that every ADHD person watching right now is going to go look for goat herders and llama farmers on LinkedIn. because I'm about to do
Yeah,
just that.
absolutely. You know,
Right.
a related term, I think, what was it, like sheep dipping or cow dipping or something like
Yeah.
that? And there's quite a few of those as well. It's anyway. I could talk for hours about farm animals, but let's not worry about that for now. Maybe another time.
Anyway,
Really, my pleasure.
and thanks for all the people watching at the time and in the future and in the past. It's not making sense. Anyway, thanks a lot. I've
Thank you,
got loads
guys.
of time. Bye.
This is what God requires.